Hello everyone, you're watching Music is a Journey. I'm Peter Scove, and in today's video I'm going to talk about the 10 bands that I would choose if I could only listen to 10 bands for the rest of my life. Let me give you a little bit of a background story on this. Tonight I was going through my Gmail folder, the one I have for Music is a Journey. The only things that show up in there are notifications of new subscribers, comments on my videos, or replies to comments that I have made. And recently, in the last year or so, I'm making it a habit of when I get a new subscriber, I just check to see if they have any of their own content. A lot of people are private individuals. They don't have any videos. Some of them just have maybe 2 or 3 personal videos or a few favorite videos. But some people are, like me, we are on YouTube and we are sharing music. Sometimes they're musicians and they might have some things they want to share. So I always like to go over and check out their channel and just see if it's somebody that I want to subscribe to, either just in support and, check out a couple of their videos, or if it's somebody who actually has some really interesting content that I may want to watch later on. In any case, I'm all for supporting one another in this because it's a nice feeling, when you get new subscribers. I'm always happy for it. So anyway, there was one fella, his YouTube channel goes by the name of Yardism. And I just went over to see what he's doing, and he's got a number of videos up talking about music, but one of them caught my attention. It was 10 bands for life, or something like that, and I immediately understood the concept must mean if you could choose only 10 bands to listen to for the rest of your life. And at this point I had to go downstairs and start preparing dinner, but as I was preparing dinner I thought, what would I choose? And I made a list and I started preparing my thoughts for making a video of my own in my head, and then I ran up later on and got a chance to watch his video. It's about 10 minutes long, and realized that his thought process kind of followed similarly to mine, so I thought that was really cool. Anyway, I gotta let the cat in, just a moment. It's very rare to make a video without any feline interruption. Okay, so of course I think if you are already thinking about this, you may have some bands that you're going to want to have on your list, but at the same time it's quite tricky because especially if you're a music collector, you probably have some albums that you really love, but you wouldn't want to take like that band with you as your 10 to take with you for the rest of your life. Let's say you're going to Mars and you can only bring 10 bands with you, right? So anyway, like you've probably got some albums you really love, but you wouldn't want to choose that band. And you probably also have some bands that you really love you'd hate to leave behind, but when it comes down to choosing just 10, might be really tricky. Just like in the last few years, I've found a lot of bands who have great discographies, but their discographies are maybe 6 or fewer albums. I also have picked up some albums, from the last whatever decades, where there is an album that has got some really awesome songs, but I don't love the whole album. And that band may have only ever released 2 or 3 albums, maybe even only 1. I would hate to miss out on those songs, but at the same time, I gotta pick 10 bands. So, of course, I want to pick bands that are going to satisfy as much range of my musical preferences as possible. So, here are the 10 bands that I picked. Okay, before we actually start the list, there's one caveat to throw in here. You can take with you that band's entire studio output. So no compilation albums and no live albums, which is probably going to hurt because some of these bands do have really awesome live albums, and some of the bands that I picked have some compilation albums that include B-sides or outtakes or whatever single-only releases that I really love, and if I can't take those compilations with me, it's going to hurt. But, following that rule then, let's say that you can take the entire LP, double LP, EP catalog with you. Just no compilation albums, no live albums. Okay, number 1. The first band I wrote down is Sloan. Sloan are a Canadian rock band that formed in 1991. They are still going. They have 13 full-length albums as well. They have 2 EPs. One was their original release from way back when. One was a digital download only that originally consisted of 5 tracks, but a 6th track was added later on. I don't know if that counts because it's digital only, and I think we're talking about physical format here, so we might have to cancel that one. But Sloan have been a favorite of mine ever since I first heard them back around early 1993. They have covered a variety of styles over their career, starting out with a kind of underground, slightly punkish flavored, shoegaze type thing, moving into a style that's probably closer to bands like Pavement or Dinosaur Jr., then going into a retro 70s sound, which they did really, really well, moving on more into a rock band type format, and then just the last, 5 or 6 albums have seen them covering a variety of things. They have basically, they are a band of 4 members. They do have a 5th member on keyboards. They've had for the last, since 2006 anyway, originally to play keyboards live because they have 2 musicians in the band who played keyboards on the recordings. Now they've got this guy in for live, and as well, I think he's been involved in the last couple of studio albums as well. But basically we're talking about 4 members who are all 4 songwriters, all 4 lead singers, and all 4 having a kind of different approach. So the sound of Sloan is quite diverse, maybe comparable to the Beatles or in a way Queen, because Queen also had 4 songwriters and at least 3 lead vocalists. So I've always loved their catalog. I always enjoy their new albums. I pre-order them, and there has never been an album that has really disappointed me. But the last 3 or 4 releases, I love them, and I actually have kind of stopped listening to the older stuff for now because I'm enjoying the new stuff so much. So Sloan is the first one. Easy breezy pick for my list. Okay, second one to come to mind was Yes. Now Yes is a band I only got into around 2012, even though I was familiar with some of their music from before. But I really, really like the band's catalog. I'm not going to say everything. A couple of albums like Going for the One and Tornado, the sound quality is a little tinny for my ears. And then albums like Big Generator, Union, Open Your Eyes, and Heaven and Earth don't really have a lot of songs that I would say I want to listen to over and over. Maybe each album has 1 or 2 and that's it. But the rest of their catalog is quite satisfactory. I really love the new album, and it inspired me to buy The Quest, which I've listened to once through now, and I like it better than I thought I would. So for a band that has given us a long history since 1969 up to the present, a long history of quite diverse recordings, very adventurous music, of course big in the symphonic prog books of history, one of the top bands of all time in that area, but just a range of sounds. I like 90210 from the 80s. We've got that kind of pop rock style. The album Talk I also really like. Yeah, Yes just have such a range of diversity. We have many different, very skilled musicians in the band, so over the years you can take your pick of what kind of sound you like best. Yes is definitely going on the list. Alright, next one. Hey Ningen Isu fans, who would I be if I didn't include that band on my list? Ningen Isu, the Japanese heavy metal, heavy rock band, forming in the late 80s, debuting with an EP around, was it 1989, and then a string of really killer albums for the last, since 1990. The 23rd album is due out in a few days, so probably one of my next videos is going to be my review of that album. They have explored different areas, going into more like classic 70s heavy rock style, going into a little bit more progressive heavy rock style, exploring a little bit in the psychedelic area, a real range of things over their career. The last few albums have been more or less consistently just like traditional heavy metal, sometimes going a little bit on the extreme side, like a little bit on the speed metal side. But anyway, basically, I guess we got to say 3 lead vocalists, because the drummer usually gets a song on each album to sing as well. And a really unique sounding band among Japanese metal bands. So yeah, Ningen Isu are a choice for my 10 bands to take along. And obviously with 23 studio albums and an EP, that's a pretty hefty catalog to take with you. Okay, going down the list, I see that Deep Purple is the next band I thought of. Deep Purple is one of my all-time favorite bands. I would not leave without them. And again, we're talking about a band with such a long history and so many different skillful musicians coming and going that we have a really diverse range of music. going back to the kind of progressive and 60s flavored rock style from their first 3 albums, their kind of, you know, really bombastic hard rocker of In Rock, and the later albums of the Mark II lineup. The stuff they did with David Coverdale and Glenn Hughes, great stuff there. And as I mentioned not long ago, I really have come to appreciate Come Taste the Band. Perfect Strangers, the regrouping of the Mark II lineup, excellent album. And from there on, basically just most of the albums have all had at least some killer tracks on them. I really enjoyed when Steve Morse joined. The Perpendicular and Abandon albums have some great new sounds to contribute to the Deep Purple sound palette. Bananas, Rapture of the Deep have some good songs, but I'm not totally satisfied with the sound quality of those albums. But after that, from Now What, the last 3 albums have some pretty cool stuff. Even though Ian Gillan's voice is not what it used to be, I think his way of singing, kind of speaking with a melody, as somebody once said not long ago, I think it suits, it's good that he's trying to do that and just make it work rather than trying to do what he can't do anymore. So yeah, Deep Purple, hefty catalog, wide range of stuff, great music, wouldn't leave home without it. Okay, so I was thinking, of course, you know, I do have a love for extreme metal. I love a lot of thrash metal bands and albums, death metal, black metal, and some of the other extreme stuff. And I can't say that, you know, thinking about it, it was really tough to say, is there a band that I would say I want their catalog and renounce everybody else? And it was really a tough one because I thought, couldn't I just pick 12 extreme bands, like maybe 5 or 6 thrash and a few death metal and a couple of black metal bands just to cover everything? And then it dawned on me, of course, Opeth. Opeth, yeah. They have covered a range of music over their career, of course, starting out in a kind of more mellow death with some kind of black metal bits kind of mixed in the early days, transforming into a progressive mellow death band, gradually expanding their sound to include more and more progressive type elements, producing some wonderful albums with Ghost Reveries and Watershed, having some excellent songs on those, and then just dropping the whole extreme metal thing completely. And the last 4 albums have been, I think, quite interesting, great songs on all of them. So yeah, with Opeth, I would be able to cover a range of extreme metal sounds, keeping as well some of the progressive style that I love, and then some of the more interesting newer albums. So a good range of music with Opeth, 14 studio albums. I think I couldn't go wrong choosing them. All right, now I want to pick a band who actually don't have a big catalog, but whose music I have really come to appreciate recently. Of course, I talked about them not long ago, Blood Ceremony. 5 albums so far only, but each album distinct from the other. We start out with a kind of heavy stoner rock doom metal type band with a classic early 70s sound, flute playing, Farfisa organ. We move into a heavier album with more organ, less Farfisa organ, a little bit scaled back on the flute, and then moving into gradually more late 60s, early 70s, assorted experimental stuff. A little bit pop here, a little bit progressive here, and then the whole theme, of course, being of kind of witchcraft and black magic and that sort of thing, which, you know, they're not practitioners of it, but they read books and watch movies on it and base their songs about that. Only 5 albums, but I find them to be such an exciting band, obviously evolving so that each album brings something new to the table in their discography. So wonderful, wonderful band. I do have to mention a band that is not going to be selected because of Blood Ceremony, and that is Unleash the Archers. Unleash the Archers, similar to Blood Ceremony, they have 5 full-length albums out. They also have some digital download stuff. They started out as a mellow death band and have moved into more power metal territory, recently adding some synthwave to their power metal. They are a fantastic band. The singer, Brittany Slays, is one of the few people who can actually almost bring tears to my eyes with how wonderful her voice is. The band is excellent as far as technical proficiency goes. They have some really great songs, and it would be really tough for me to give up my favorite songs of theirs. However, when it comes down to it, 5 albums from each band, Blood Ceremony just kind of satisfy more overall than Unleash the Archers do, even though I would be giving up some really fantastic music. So, have to mention Unleash the Archers. Okay, The Tea Party. Next one, The Tea Party. I made a video about them, I think last year, about their history. They are, again, a very interesting band, very talented musicians, have a diverse range of stringed instruments, drawing a lot of inspiration from Middle Eastern and Indian-styled music. They started out in a very much Led Zeppelin flavor, but gradually included more and more Middle Eastern type sounds and Indian sounds to the music, suddenly went over to an industrial sound, and then for the next couple of albums kind of worked around the kind of classic Led Zeppelin hard rock style with the Middle Eastern type influences, and still keeping some of the electronica kind of, not electronica, but industrial stuff. And then they went ahead and just did a kind of straight up heavy rock album, which was not exactly their idea. Then they split up, and they've only done 2 albums since they regrouped, but both of those albums have some really terrific material on. So I would love to keep them. They're a band that I don't listen to all that often. I kind of have to be in the mood, but when I'm in the mood to listen to them, I really enjoy what I hear. Jeff Martin, one of the members, he did some solo albums or some albums with some other bands. It would be really nice to include that in, as well as drummer Jeff Burrows was in a band called Crash Karma who did a couple of albums. It would be really nice if I could include those albums in with the Tea Party, but if not, just the Tea Party's catalog is good enough as it is. I'm very satisfied to have that. So we've got 3 more to talk about. Of course, I think Judas Priest would have to be in there. When it comes to Judas Priest and Iron Maiden are more consistent, but I find that the songs of Judas Priest, there's just more that I like, probably because the band has experimented more with their sound over the years. So it means that there's a little bit more diversity. And of course, they go back to the mid-70s. So again, we've got that 70s kind of hard rock, heavy metal sound to add to the catalog since then. So I have to pick Judas Priest. I don't have every album, and I don't think I love every album. There's some like Ram It Down and Turbo Lover, it's kind of eh, and there's some I don't have, like I don't have the Ripper Owens ones. But if I had those, if I had the full studio collection, I'm pretty sure I would find something I like, even on the albums that I don't have right now that I never bothered to get. So I would definitely have to include Judas Priest. They've always been just a little more dearer to my heart than Iron Maiden. Great though Iron Maiden is. Okay, another one I have to say, this is going to be a really difficult choice because we're down to the last 2 now, and there are 2 bands I would equally love to have, but I cannot kick the 10th one off the list. So, Uriah Heep or Voivod. Now, Uriah Heep have just that many more albums. They have 25 studio albums. I think Voivod are up to 16 or something. Uriah Heep also go from 1970 up to this year. So there is a real big range of music to cover that's covered. You've got different members coming and going, different vocalists, the band being somewhere between hard and heavy rock, and also progressive rock, and then, you know, going here and there for some other things as well. This year I picked up a number of the albums I didn't have, and I really enjoyed their catalog. The last few albums have also been really heavy and great. But if there's one thing to say about Voivod, is they do have some albums that I'm pretty sure I probably will not like. I don't have them, and it's because I listened to them on YouTube and decided I don't need them. As well, while the last few albums have been really terrific, there's a kind of sameness to them. So looking at Voivod, they don't have as many albums, you know, only about 16 or so, but the band's discography for me goes from like a really terrific album to a pretty good album to a fantastic album to a very nice album to a great album to a might have to get more used to it album. And I just find the discography for me keeps going up and down like that. Like Negatron, okay, has some good stuff. Phobos, love it. What is it next after that? The Voivod self-titled, yeah, it's good. 14, okay. Infini, no, not so much. And then Target Earth, yeah. It keeps going up and down like that. But I think it would be very hard for me to exclude Voivod from the list because the songs I love and the albums I love, I really, really love. And which do I love more, the Voivod or Uriah Heep? It's really, really a tough choice. And then we can say that Uriah Heep do have some similarities to Deep Purple, so maybe I could leave Uriah Heep off and go with Voivod. But I don't know. It would be down to the wire. I would have to do like flip a coin or something. So Uriah Heep or Voivod, not 100% sure who I would pick. I do have a special love for Voivod though, because, you know, them being from Quebec and all. And the last band then, my number 10, is the Japanese band Garnet Crow, who existed from 1999 to I think it's 2012, 2013. I made a video about them a year or two ago. They are essentially a Japanese pop band, but they are a unique pop band. And coming back after listening to progressive rock for many years, I realized they do have something beyond typical Japanese pop. The keyboard player, the singer, is actually a keyboard player who's classically trained, and she composes the music, but the songwriter actually plays the keyboards. And the composer actually sings the songs. Their guitarist is also very versatile, very talented player. And then the fourth member is actually a producer who also can play keyboards and does a lot of mixing. So I've really appreciated their catalog, even though sometimes I've said to myself, I don't really need these albums in my collection. They might be a little bit too poppy, a little bit too fluffy. But then when I listened to them a couple of years back, I realized, no, these guys really have some terrific music going on. And I since picked up everything that I didn't have, which was mostly singles that include B-sides that are not on any of their other albums. So Garnet Crow would have to go with me because they would satisfy that kind of progressive pop rock that I'm not getting from most of the other bands on the list. So that is it. Sloan, yes. Ningen Isu, Deep Purple, Opeth, Blood Ceremony, sorry, Unleash the Archers, The Tea Party, Judas Priest, probably Voivod, but maybe Uriah Heep, Rock, Scissors, Paper, and then Garnet Crow. Now, you will notice that some of the bands that I really love, I've talked about before very affectionately, are not on the list, and they include Rush. For heaven's sake, I've often said they're one of my all-time favorite bands, but I think when it comes down to it, there are many parts of the Rush catalog that I don't appreciate as much as the parts that I really do. I guess you could say the same with, Voivod and Uriah Heep and Judas Priest, but I think when it comes down to it, I would probably choose those bands over Rush in the end, which means I would give up a lot of my favorite songs and albums. Black Sabbath, of course, a must-have, but I think I actually prefer the music of Deep Purple and Uriah Heep just a little bit more. Led Zeppelin, I just went over their catalog, their 8 albums, and found that 6 albums I really, really love. One of them is pretty good, and the other one, not so keen about that one. But it would mean giving up 6 albums that I really, really love. Sorry, Led Zeppelin. And Pink Floyd, yeah, Pink Floyd, again, I would be giving up some really terrific albums, but probably overall my emotional connection to the band is just not as strong as the ones that made the top 10 list. And finally, Blue Oyster Cult. Every time I get an album by this band, I've been picking it up bit by bit, but every time I get an album, there are 2 or 3 songs in there that I think are absolutely wonderful. A couple of other ones that are also really good, but then there are some where I'm kind of like, it's okay, not all that terrific. So Blue Oyster Cult would be a band that I would love to include, but not in a final pick of 10 for me. So obviously if we were to say 20, it would be no problem. Then Rush, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Blue Oyster Cult, Uriah Heep or Voivod, and Unleash the Archers, they'd all make it. Plus I'd have a couple of other bands that would make it into the top 20, and that would be a lot more easier to do. But hey, having restrictions or limits does make you think more about it. So I think aside from not being able to choose between Uriah Heep and Voivod, I've more or less made my 10. Ask me tomorrow, maybe I'll pick Voivod or maybe I'll pick Uriah Heep, not sure. But anyway, there you go. That's my pick for 10 bands. If I could only ever listen to 10 for the rest of my life, only the studio catalog, only the stuff available on physical format, and no compilation albums. That's my pick. What's your pick? This is not exactly a threat, I think, but anyway, if you want to do a video and you want to tell me about it, let me know. I want to hear what you have to say. Or just leave a comment, whenever. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Okay, bye.